Makes sense. And leading on to that, you kind of talked earlier about how you and your, I believe, friend, you guys had funding for a movie you guys wanted to create.
Yeah.
Is that, if you had a dream role or like a dream movie, what would it look like?
So dream role, I would say, kind of jumping into it, is I'd love to be a showrunner for a television show, like somebody who comes up with the idea for a show, pitches it, and then is kind of like the showrunner is basically the lead writer who like oversees the writer's room, puts all that together. He or she is monitoring like every single different decision that's made. You know, they're kind of like the overall director. Yeah. And the individual TV episodes will have different directors because one guy or one woman or one person, whoever, directing like everything is kind of impossible, genuinely, just because like there's just so much and it's hours upon hours upon hours of everything. But they kind of get to be the person who's doing like the total oversight of everything, and I love that. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I love Breaking Bad. Like Vince Gilligan was the person who was the showrunner for that and helped out. Was one of the showrunners for Better Call Saul too, and I just honestly would just love to do that, something like that. And also movies too. I mean, like I love TV and getting to write a movie. Anything involving just writing and making something is
No clue about that showrunner deal. That's awesome. I didn't even know that was an actual like role.
Yeah. No, it's a lot, a lot of work. But yeah.
Moving into like the next question, what would you say like advice for anyone, you know, in your shoes?
Okay,
5 or 7
I'll try and tackle this a couple different ways. Advice for anybody who's like going into writing specifically, as cliche as it sounds, genuinely just write.
Yeah.
Like the hardest part of it is genuinely just sitting down and taking the time, because like I've been doing a lot of writing. I've been enjoying it. I've also had like 30 odd jobs since I've been living in Los Angeles and doing all these different things. And like I making sure that you're just taking the time to sit down and work on whatever you're doing. And that applies to acting too. Like I forget who, but I read something not too long ago. Somebody said something that stuck out to me, was sort of like the moment you start thinking of like acting auditions, for example, less is like, oh, this is an example of something in which I will probably be told no, and more, even if I'm told no, it's a chance for me to practice. That really goes a long way, and it's a great way of just thinking about it and approaching it, because especially with that, there's a lot of situations in which I know I keep saying Breaking Bad, but genuinely like a mantra I live by is like they pitched Breaking Bad ended up on the channel AMC, right. But they pitched Breaking Bad to a couple different studios. They pitched it to HBO, and they said no. And like that show's been one of the most critically acclaimed, like most famous things in the last like 10 years for like television, or maybe even longer than. Yeah, it came out in 2007, longer than that. Ugh. But yeah, like it's just the type of thing where like honestly, just like continuing to put work in, and also like again, realize it sounds kind of cliche, but I mean it. Like no matter what you're doing, like read. Just taking like a lot of different information, because you're not going to have anything to really be working on or learning or expanding on if you're not just consistently challenging yourself with like books about something you like, or books or articles or anything about just stuff you like don't even know anything about it. It just leads to new pathways, new like discoveries.
That's awesome. You're not wrong. You can't be too knowledgeable. That is
that's absolutely. Yeah, genuinely. Yeah.
And kind of going towards the Diary of a Wimpy Kid scene.
Totally.
What other movies and other shows would you say like are your favorites that you've done that, if you're able to say?
Okay. No, totally. So acting-wise, I have a soft spot for a movie called Frankenweenie, which is like a Tim Burton stop-motion animated movie. And I love that I got to be a part of that because, A, Tim Burton is awesome. When I was in a recording booth with him for like only a day, but when I went, like I think I was a kid in my slight defense, but I think like when I met him, the first thing I said was like, "You directed Batman," and he was like, "I know," and I was just like, "Oh." But I love that movie because I've always loved like stop motion specifically, because that's just like stop motion is when you essentially just have puppets and you take a picture and then you move it a little bit and you take another picture and then you just go, and it takes 12 hours usually to get 2 seconds of footage. Ultimately, it's mind-boggling how much work goes into it, but it's such like I have such respect for that, and I love that because they actually ended up the character I played, they actually sent me the puppet that they used. Yeah, I have that like at my house in Rhode Island. Like so that was really cool. Like, and it's cool to have worked with him and been a part of that. I was also randomly in a Three Stooges movie where I played young Curly, and that's kind of cool because the Three Stooges are just they're very iconic in their own
I
way.
wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. No, it was very fun, and that was actually I think the toughest role I ever did.
Really?
Yeah, because there was so much like normally when you're acting, you're kind of just like you're bringing a character to life, but in this case, you were doing. Essentially, because I was young Curly specifically, I was doing an imitation of somebody else's imitation of like what they chose to do of like their performance. You know what I mean? So it was very layered, and there was a lot of research and a lot of different like steps on that. But yeah, so those were fun. I like those a lot. But yeah,
That's awesome. I love that.
Would you you talked about how much stop motion was interesting. Would you ever think about trying to do stop motion on your own?
yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. There's this great YouTube video I saw that had to do with like literally just one like frame from Coraline, and it just shows this person on like this crazy like pulley system, and they've got all these like little tools, and it's like a 10-minute video, and it's all so they can move the puppet and get everything for literally like one frame, and you need like generally 24 frames a second. So it literally just like moves it like one. It takes 10 minutes, and then he takes a picture. He's like, all right, and then the video just ends, and he's gonna be doing that like hundreds more times that day alone. So like I'd love to write something that was stop motion oriented, maybe even act in a stop motion thing again, but actually doing it, I genuinely don't know if I have the patience for that. And I say that to myself with love, but I don't know.
I hear you. I got two kind of semi-particular questions. So, first question is, do you rewatch Diary of a Wimpy Kid? And second of all, do you ever get like annoyed or kind of pestered by when people ask you questions about Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
I definitely I've probably seen. So let's just go with like the first one as an example, I guess. I've definitely seen the first movie at least like 40 times.
Yeah.
But it's honestly, it's always weird because it's like watching that movie in general, every time I've seen it's been so weird because because I was like acting in it, like it's not even just like a movie so much as it ends up just kind of being this like random like memory generator kind of thing, you know? And so like it's fun when I go back after a long time and I ended up seeing it randomly. Yeah. One time, my roommate in LA, I just walked into his room and he was watching it. And I was just like, why are you watching this? He was like, oh. And so I ended up watching. I hadn't seen it in like 4 years or so. And it's nice because it reminds you of a lot. And I think it's a fun thing it's a very unique experience to be in something like that and then kind of come back to it. Like, just as, it's just like, it's such a time capsule in a weird way.
Right.
It just like generates a lot. But yeah, I never rewatch it of my own accord. I'll put it that way. Like it's the type of thing where it's like one of my friends will be like, one of my best friends from college still hasn't seen it, and there's just going to be one day at some point where I sit down and we watch it, and it's just going to be he's going to make so much fun of me. One thing I want to throw out there that I absolutely have to, here of all places, is one of my best friends here. He grew up across the street from me. Brian Heston. He used to tease me all the time in Spanish class. He would just work in ways of saying, don't call me, don't come by my house, we're done, which is like one of like the big like Rowley quotes. And it's just really funny because like nobody really said that then, but it was like a very specific in-joke for like him and I. And then like a couple years ago, like that particular quote just started being everywhere on TikTok and stuff like that. It was just so funny because I was always just thinking like Brian did it first. Like Brian did it in Spanish first. Like he could have beat this trend by like 6 years if he was on that. But yeah. I got a real kick out of that. But yeah, no, and it never annoys me.
Yeah,
it never annoys me. I've had a lot of really sweet interactions with people based off that. There was, I think my favorite was I was in a bookstore. I was like 15, and a kid came up to me and he just started screaming at me in French, and I had no idea what he was saying. Like I was just like, I don't know. And then finally he just stopped and he went, "Zoo oui, mama," and I was like, "Oh yeah!" And then I gave him a high five, and that was honestly, I think, maybe one of my top 5 interactions I had with anybody on the planet. Like that made my day. It just crossed boundaries, you know. But yeah, I got a kick out of that.
Would have never thought I'd actually hear you say that in person.
Yeah, and I did it with a bit of an accent. There you go. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And just got one more quick wrap-up question.
Cool.
Who's the, I guess, lack of a better term, kind of coolest person that you've ever worked with? I guess
Okay.
famous.
That's tough because there's a lot of, okay, I can speed run a couple. I got to play Jack Black's son in the movie, which was really cool, and it was very embarrassing. Like within minutes of meeting him, I was like, for my 10th birthday, I went to see Kung Fu Panda with my friends, and I loved it. And he was like, "That's great." And I was like, "Oh." Working with him was really cool. Oh, I just hit the mic with my. Working with him was really cool. I met Steve Carell for 5 seconds in a movie I was in called The Way, Way Back, which I really love. But like one thing with me that I realized throughout my acting career is I had the really weird habit of meeting people before I saw the things that they were like really big for. Because like when I met and technically worked with Steve Carell, I literally only knew him as the squirrel from Over the Hedge. And then, like, 3 years later, I watched The Office, and I was just like, oh, jeez. Like this guy's kind of cool. But, yeah, I literally thought of him as a squirrel, which was, yeah. But he was really cool. There's a couple people I've ran into randomly. Like, I honestly think, I'm getting really geeky here, but I honestly think a lot of why I got into movies was because I grew up, like, a diehard fan of the original Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. I love those movies. I love those movies, and I love Willem Dafoe in those movies. Like, he's so funny, and it's just like when I was like 8, like I randomly got to go to a premiere for a movie I had like a 5-second part in, and I saw Tobey Maguire there, and I got to talk to him for like 10 seconds. And, like, I didn't technically work with him, but that was like genuinely like the coolest thing for me. So yeah, those are just a couple that are coming to mind.
That's incredible. I love that. Tobey Maguire has been my favorite Spider-Man ever since the
Yeah.
start. I grew up with
Yeah.
Tobey too, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I love those.
And does anybody else have any closing questions? All right, so here, Citadel High School, we decided we wanted to give you a welcoming gift. Thank you so much.
Oh my! This is
for
so.
coming
I
on
literally
today.
was just looking at the store that you guys have now, and I was thinking like, I want one of these. This is perfect.
Love
This made my day.
But
Wow!
it was an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure having you
Yeah,
on.
no,
Your
thank you.
energy hasn't changed at all since you were younger.
Thank you. I try.
It's
Yeah.
been an absolute blast.
Thank you guys so much. This was
of course.
awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you
This is
guys so
super
much.
cool.
Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day, y'all.